Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Ross here, and this is a replay from Deprived Pickle, which is a super tester and was so kind to send me a replay of the Tier 10 Habarovsk, and that is the last time I'm ever going to try to pronounce that name and butcher it. But nonetheless, the Tier 10 Russian destroyer, and this is a full gameplay where it's actually just very impressive. So there's a couple things I would like to do in this video. Is one, talk about the stat breakdown between the two Tier 10 gunboats which are currently in the game. I'm not going to compare the Tier 10 Russian destroyer to the Shimakaze because one is a gunboat and one is a torpedo boat, and the gameplay styles is very different. But the Habarovsk, I wasn't going to say it, but here I did, is very much a gunboat, and it's easily comparable to the gearing. You know, I'm not going to make any speculations, about gameplay, about, how it's going to perform against another one. I'm just going to make a pure stat breakdown about where the stats take place between the two. And you guys will watch some awesome gameplay of Pickle just absolutely destroying guys from absolute cover. And he was only detected in this game about 4 times, and most of the time he's firing from invisible fire. And if you guys have paid attention to iChase's channel and all, he just did a tutorial on how to do invisible fire. But this is a prime example of what invisible fire is, where you can just sit here and fire freely and not have to worry about any incoming fire. So let's get down to the stat breakdown. First, I'm going to talk about the stats on the Habarovsk, the Tier 10 Soviet destroyer. Now, before I talk about all these stats, these stats are subject to change. This is very much a test that's being done by the super testers, and the stats that I'm going to be talking about might not be reflective about the stats that actually end up in the game when these ships are released. So let's start with the Habarovsk. It has a 22,500 HP health pool, and that is the largest health pool out of any destroyer currently in game. It has 8 130mm cannons, dual mounted in 4 different turrets. It has a base HE damage of 1900 damage, making it the most damage out of any HE shell for the destroyers as well. It can fire at 13 rounds per minute to a base range of 13 kilometers, but fully upgraded with captain skills and all the upgrades, you can make this thing reach out and touch somebody from 18.2 kilometers away, which is a really far distance for a destroyer to fire. It has a max speed of 43.3 knots, which will make it the fastest ship in the game currently. If you add a flag and you also hit the speed boost, you will see speeds of greater than 50 knots, which is absolutely crazy, and that's ludicrous speed. Now, it has a lot of tops that we just went over, but what it is at the bottom is at its torpedoes. It has 2 launchers with 5 torpedo tubes apiece at 10-kilometer range and a max damage of 15,000 per torpedo with a top speed of 56 knots. You can hit an upgrade with this and decrease the range by 4 kilometers and increase its damage by 4,000 per torpedo, but I don't think it will ever be worth at Tier 10 to have 6-kilometer range torpedoes. It makes up for those torpedoes with its detection range. At 9.2 kilometers base, it can get down to 7.1 kilometer detection range with camo and your max crew skills, which is pretty small when you think about it. 7.1, that's where a lot of the early tier 5 and tier 6 destroyers are at in the Japanese line. So with that really small 7.1 kilometer detection range, you can do invisibility fire pretty much the entire game. Something has to get really close to you to be detected. Now, that doesn't mean that you'll never be detected, because obviously, the games progress, and just like here, this Atago is really close and definitely does see a Pickle here. And this could have been really bad for him, because this, Atago could really easily have finished him off, but he got saved by another destroyer, and he gets to keep on playing and keep on getting a lot of damage. We've already seen how to do invisible fire through iChase's video if you subscribe to him, but even right here we can see that it's not that far off. He's hiding behind some cover, he's firing over a hill, and he can actually fire at these guys and they're not seeing him. He's undetected this entire time. I mean, that Atago's 12 kilometers off and not seeing him even when he's firing. So we talked about the Habarovsk, and now let's put in a comparison to the Tier 10 gearing from the United States. It has a health pool of 19,400. It has 6 127mm guns with a max HE damage of 1,800, so almost comparable to the Soviet at 1,900. 20 rounds per minute, which is a lot better than the Soviet in a destroyer, with a max range of 11.1 kilometer range when it's stock and up to 15.5 kilometer range fully upgraded. Now the difference though is the hang times. I don't actually have statistics on the difference of the hang times, but you can definitely tell just by right here, even the firing, that these rounds firing at 12 kilometers, they're not arcing up that high. If we go back to my gearing video, the rounds would actually be going off the screen, off the top, and then down at this range. So you have to think about that as well. The muzzle velocity of these guns is definitely different. The gearing has a max speed of 36.3 knots. It has 2 launchers with 5 torpedoes apiece that have a range of 16.5 kilometers. Its base damage for its torpedoes is 17,900 and it does 66 knots. So the torpedoes are actually pretty decent, you know, especially when you're comparing them to the Soviets. They have a 6 kilometer farther range, they're almost 10 knots faster, and they do just a little bit more damage. Now, the detection range is 7.6 kilometers base detection for the gearing, and with skills and camo, it can get down to 5.9. So the gearing is a little bit more stealthy, but it needs to be a little bit more stealthy because of its guns don't have that range that the Soviet Tier 10 has. So let's talk about this game now with Deprived Pickle. He just earned the badge Witherer. That means 60,000 damage has been caused by either fire or by flooding. And we know it's not by flooding because he hasn't hit 1 torpedo. So this is all fire damage that he's doing. Right now he has 253 total hits and 15 fires. He has 8 flag resets as well, which is massive to have that many flag resets. And most of the time he's not detected. Now that last Turbines he killed, he almost killed him from full. You know, he didn't actually get the kill, but watch this right now. He's just going to sail straight into this Tirpitz, and he's just going to get as close as possible, and then it's really brave, but also look at this, you know, the Tirpitz player. He's not even facing his guns at him. Like, there's no reason that Pickle should even be worried about this right now. But just watch this. He just hit full stop and just put out his smoke. Now he's going to sit in his smoke cloud and fire undetected and just be able to wither away this Tirpitz. You know, and each one of these shells is landing. Look how accurate they are. He only has 8 cannons, and each time he fires, he has 8 hits. They're almost like laser guns. You know, it's absolutely accurate, and you can just see it right here in the gameplay. He missed 1 shell there. And they're very accurate shells, and he is just laying into this Tirpitz, and to be quite honest, there's really nothing much this Tirpitz can do. They can do a lot of blind fire, they can try to guess where it is. That Montana is back there, and that Montana is definitely scared because he can see this Tirpitz is just getting burned down. And there's Pickle's first kill, but it's not because, you know, any other reason other than he was playing the map and, you know, other people got the last shot, and that's A-okay. Now, Deprived Pickle's ability to stay outside of detection range pretty much this entire game and constantly fire on these battleships is really what turned the tide of battle for this game, where at one point they were losing and their team wasn't really advancing. But from a battleship captain point of view, when you're constantly on fire from bow to stern, you really think twice about where you're going to go and how far you're going to push in. And that really did help this team actually get on the initiative and win this game. With Pickle's last few shots out, he earns Confederate and wins the game. Witherer, 402 hits, 21 fires, 1,700 base experience, and that's 166,000 total damage done, which is really impressive because 1, it's a destroyer that never fired a torpedo that hit, and 2, even some tier 10 battleship captains can't do this much damage. A big shout out to Deprived Pickle for sending me this replay and letting me use it, and as always, if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, it means a lot to me, and until next time, I'm the Flying Ross, I'll check you guys later.